Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast with no name. My name is Daquan Peel, and today I'm joined by the denizens of Hill 106. We'll go around in a circle and introduce ourselves.
I'm Mike Yuseo.
I'm Nathan Posel.
I'm Cleavon Wilkerson.
And to start things off, we decided to talk about our favorite seasons, especially because around here it is starting to get colder and people are starting to wear longer clothes. Mm-hmm. So, starting with you, Mikey, what would you say that your favorite season is?
I think it'd be summer, just because I like the heat, less clothing, and that's when like soccer comes, tournaments. Last summer I was able to go to Ireland, so basically good experiences. So yeah.
Less clothing. I don't know. It's a toss-up between. I just love all the seasons, but I'd probably say it's a toss-up between fall and winter. Mm-hmm. It's probably gonna go winter just because of Christmas time, and I just love Christmas music and everything that has to do about Christmas. Very fond memories.
It's a very jolly season.
Yes, it is.
I would have to also say winter. Anyone who knows me knows that I like cold. Is it cold natured? Is that what you would refer to that as?
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm a cold natured person. I like to keep the room very cold. It's basketball season around that time. People are starting to wear more comfortable clothing. It's also Christmas time.
Like the bummy fits too.
Bummy fits.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
That's great.
It's a little inside joke. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go with winter.
Me personally, I would say that spring is my favorite season, mainly because of the fact that, I was born in the spring, and I've always liked the hot temperatures better than the cold temperatures. Mm-hmm. One thing that I find interesting, though, is how different people have different reasons to appreciate different seasons. For example, Mikey, you said that you liked spring mainly because of the fact that it's soccer season.
Yeah.
Right? It's like soccer. And then also, Cleavon, you said that you like the whole, holistic, and Nate too, the holistic feel of Christmas and the closeness with that basketball season as well. It's interesting to see how that some people will define their favorite seasons purely by temperature, which is valid. I mean, some people like the hot, some people like the cold, and while other people will define their favorite seasons by the events that happen. As I reiterated, Mikey, you with soccer, and Cleavon, you with basketball.
Yeah.
I also think it's interesting. I think for me, I'm kind of like somewhere in between, like how I base off how I like things, just like in general, but let's just stick with seasons. Based off kind of like memory and nostalgia, because like when I look back on winter, I think about hanging out with like my family and doing stuff around Christmas, and then just like going out, like watching like those like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer like movies, and then like the Elf. But I can make an argument for any season. Like the same thing for Halloween, like going out with my friends to go to like those haunted trails. It's just like so fun, like pumpkin carving. And then summer, you're just hanging out with your friends all summer, pool parties and cookouts and all that. So, that's how I base off how much I like. I just happen to have the most fond memories in winter, so.
I think that's why like maybe winter. That's why I really don't fuck with it, because like winter is like, I don't know, growing up. Not so fond memories. I always just like kind of growing up, like you don't know like what you're gonna get. For me, like how many presents you're gonna get. Do we have money for Christmas? Stuff like that. And also like, I don't know. I remember, one time, I don't know what's going on, but it was like winter time and we were moving, and for some reason like my family got in a fight and my mom just chucked a lamp at my older brother, like a full-on lamp, and like I don't know. I actually really don't have like fond memories of winter. And I never had gloves, so I could never make like snowball. I always lost my gloves. But yeah.
Another thing I would attribute to like seasons, a lot of the time, like whenever I'm thinking about it, is school. Being is that we are students.
Yeah, definitely.
I would say if you had to pick the days that you were the most out of school, the seasons in which you were most out of school would probably obviously be summer. And then for me, I would think it's winter, because you have a lot of. See, I'm from the mountains,
right.
So it snows a lot up there. So we get a lot of snow days out when it comes around to being winter, because we'll get like several feet of snow. And just going out, playing in the snow, that whole time, it was very beautiful. Like I said, I like the temperature. And when you think about like how much you're out of school, snowed in with the family, playing board games, I like that time.
Yeah. It's cool to see that, like, I mean, of course, seasons are defined by memories, some good, some not so much. And then, Nate, you had an interesting point there with the fact that, like, people generally define how they feel about things based off of nostalgia. A lot of times I'll find myself basing how good an experience was by juxtaposing it with a similar one. For example, is like when I would be outside in the snow, for example, since we're talking about winter, I would compare that to being at the beach, and it's weird to see how those are comparable in some ways and not comparable and not. For example, there's little difference between snow and sand, but you're still outside enjoying people.
Yeah, I think for me, like, I definitely see what you're saying, like, just comparing, like, two times with each other. I think for me, like, going back to seasons again, back to winter specifically, like, I'll always think that no matter how hard I try, like, during the winter season, I always feel like it's kind of lackluster because I hold the memories that I have so high and so cherished. It's just like I'm trying to recreate that feeling, and I'm over here trying to chase that feeling rather than kind of just enjoying with, you know, what I'm in right now. And so then, you know, 2 years down the line, I'll look back to me right now and be like, I had a great winter, like, that's exactly what I wanted, but I was over here trying to chase a feeling that I had 5 years ago as an elementary schooler, rather than enjoying what I have now. So, yeah, sometimes I'll catch myself just kind of lacking in that aspect. Just, like, enjoy what you have in front of you rather than trying to chase something behind you.
Yeah, I would definitely say that shines on a somewhat bigger problem in today's society, is the fact that a lot of people seem to be chasing nostalgia. This can be seen in, like, the media, where people are, like, rebooting shows and whatnot, or re-releasing things that came out in the 90s. Not only is it, like, it's solid marketing, honestly, by hopping on nostalgia, but I feel that because of this, not many people live in the moment, as you said, Nate.
This kind of reminds me of a topic that we had actually a little bit ago, last night, when we were talking about, you know, the term when times were simpler, or throwback to a much simpler time, and how, like, we want those times back, and we, like, kind of use that to talk about how as time progresses, the definition of simpler time progresses with it. Seeing as how our parents, what they call pre-technology era, a much simpler time, but we call a much simpler time whenever we could play on, like, a PSP or with our action figures or something like that, a much simpler time. And then now we were even predicting that in the future, from being here doing homework at the school, chilling with friends, maybe booting up the Xbox, we're saying when things get more complicated as we, like, go into life, we're gonna look back on this and call this the more simpler time.
Right.
And so that kind of, like, ties in with the whole chasing nostalgia topic.
We talked about this in Amstead as well.
American Studies, a class here at School of Science and Math.
Yeah, kind of just like the ideal of just like we use the example of going to Grand Canyon, how, like, a family takes a vacation, they hear all these things, and, like, it's breathtaking, it's so big, and, like, you know, if you, like, go by yourself, it's like, it's a whole different experience. But then when they get there, they try to, like, replicate the feeling that they heard, and they try to, like, you know, do the same exact thing. And if they can't, or if they just, like, search for something, which is something that can't even be possible, maybe, like, they just never find it, and they leave, you know, feeling kind of, like, unfulfilled, or just like, well, that, I guess it looked like what in the postcard, you know. And they try to, like, compare it to something that's already there instead of creating their own experiences, which can be a big problem, like social media nowadays. How, like, we're always comparing ourselves to others.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting postulate. What you said in the middle of that about the difference between experiencing something with other people and experiencing it alone. For example, I was on a cruise to the Dominican Republic this summer, and I remember it was around 7 or 6 a.m. and I had watched the sun rise over the horizon of the sea, and that is a sight that I will not soon forget. It was beautiful. It was extremely beautiful. The myriad of colors that painted the sky were amazing. But I wonder sometimes if that memory would be altered in a way if I had experienced it with my family or even a group of friends. I say that memories are likely defined by how they were created. For example, like what I said before, a memory about falling down, for example, will be different if you fell down by yourself or if you fell down and your friends laughed at you for it. Like,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I see what you mean by like having I mean, it seems like memories can grow stronger by having like more people around you that can memorize what happened. It was kind of sounds weird, but yeah, I don't know. Like a lot of times, like most of my most fond memories are just with like other people. I think that's true for a lot of people. Of course, there's those intimate moments that you have just kind of by yourself that you just don't really forget. But I don't know. I always enjoy it whenever I'm able to share a memory with someone else and call it down the line. Like, even like last year, whenever we were juniors, I'd be like, "Yo, you remember when so and so did this?" And we all just start cracking up. But yeah,
I think I also like just having a memory like with everyone else that only you guys know. It kind of adds value to that relationship or like your bond between each other. Like, because like it was just you guys to experience and kind of went under with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. And what is a relationship if it's not just the memories that you have with another person?
Yeah.
And that kind of shows in we kind of define how strong a relationship is between people based on the memories you have created with someone, such as you don't consider someone a close friend unless, or you consider your closest friends the people who have been with you for a while, people you are able to make memories with, and that kind of helps you get to know them, and that builds the connection between you two, as opposed to knowing somebody in a very surface level way and not really building memories with them, as in just remembering them. You can remember a person, and then you can make memories with a person. And that kind of dictates how strong a relationship is moving forward.
Definitely. And I would say that having memories with a person has a direct relationship with the amount of trust that you put in that person. That is also like a very significant component to deep relationships, because like your closest friends are also the people that you trust to do things around. For example, like you would make seeing as that humor is subjective, you would make certain jokes around your closer friends than you would with people that you aren't very close with. I feel like that's something that we can all relate to.
Most definitely.
I think like that's something we value here between at least Nate, Cleveland, and I. Shout out to Omar and JJ too, and Austin, who was listening to the podcast.
Live audience.
Yeah, live audience. Just $10 a ticket, by the way. But you know, brotherhood and kind of like just like having each other's back is something like we value it heavily here, and it's just like, you know, if it comes down to it, we'll ride for each other.
Yeah. I feel like that is definitely one of the bigger advantages of having a dormitory system. It's one of the like really good things about colleges and schools like the North Carolina School of Science and Math, is that while like the school's hard, it's difficult. Well, I feel there's no real way of getting around that. You'll end up doing things that you don't really want to do, but you have to. That is another can of worms that we might get into later. But while you're doing that, you also operate under the condition that everyone else is also doing that, and this is aligning with a podcast episode I had before with Isaiah Hamilton, who works on the student government here, about how through struggle you become closer with people, and like there's a magnified bond, and that bond is exacerbated in dormitories.
I feel like it also kind of like, if like people like some people come here and kind of like mold themselves into something new or try to be something new, I feel like kind of those struggles can sometimes kind of like show the people's true colors and kind of like, you know, wash away like what they're trying to put out.
Definitely. I also agree with the fact that like people, you can't really know a person until you see how they react in certain conditions, like under pressure, when they have free time, when they're mad. It's like things like that. Those are when you can really see that concentrated pure emotion. I feel like that is something that talks on like a deeper level on who someone really is.
And we're kind of monitoring their reaction to when the going gets rough with their close friends or their companions or you, seeing how they react to you being in that situation. Because, like, you know, people could either go ghost, people could step in and be that step stool, or people can kind of, you know, just mediate from the sideline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think about a lot. It's just like I feel so close to my roommates, Cleveland and Mike. Yeah, because I mean, we lived together. Last year, we basically lived together, and we just basically always hang out with each other. Because I mean, we see through everything, and then like when I go back home, like, and I hang like this past summer. I was hanging out, like, obviously my friends from back home. It's just like, damn, like, these are my boys. I was hanging out with them every single day. It's just like, I'm gonna have to leave them. And then I come back and it's just like, oh no, these are my boys. I'm gonna have to leave them. And it's just like, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to base, like, because some people ask, like, oh, who are you closer friends with, Mike and Cleavon, or like my friends back from home. And it's just like, I mean, that's kind of hard because I'm staying.
Question.
Yeah, I'm staying with them. Obviously, don't want to rank friends above each other,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's really based off of, like, I can't really ask that in a I guess whenever I'm here with them.
Mm-hmm.
Vice when I'm back with my friends there, it's just like I'm gonna feel biased towards one way.
Exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, kind of straight off from the topic, but that was just something we were talking
No,
about.
that's definitely. I definitely feel you. The way I kind of gauge that question when I'm asked is, I'm a very brotherhood-oriented person. It takes a minute for me to consider you a brother, and like just based off that, like, the power of the word brother with me holds a lot of weight because that's family. There's a difference between having close friends and then having family, and I consider it. The way I gauge the question is, once I consider you my family, you're my family. There's no hierarchy within my family.
Yeah.
I love all my boys back at home, Nate and Mikey. All of them are my family. I would do anything for them. And so that's just kind of the way I would explain the question if it was asked to me.
Definitely. I agree. The ties that bind when it comes to friendship is definitely like one of the many spices of life. Which is, it's kind of sad now because of, like, with the rise of the information age, you don't really get that kind of bond because you don't really have to live with someone to feel close to them anymore.
Yeah.
It's like all that happens is just you load up Snapchat and send them a couple of snaps, and now all of a sudden you're best friends, as Snapchat defines it.
Or even like, kind of like platforms like Twitch. It's just like, it's kind of weird how like some people can feel like close to like a subscriber or like someone who's streaming. How like a viewer can be like close with that streamer. Like, I feel like I know this streamer.
Right.
Even though you never talk to him, he doesn't know who you are. You know,
Yeah.
like it's weird.
And so, like, it's an interesting question to see is, like, is that bond, like, truly artificial?
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, the feelings aren't. Like, you,
Yeah.
And on Twitch, you still feel close to that streamer, despite the fact that you've probably may or may not ever meet them in your life.
Exactly.
And so, like, is that something that should be looked down upon? Or is it something that's like, oh, no, that's not a real relationship? But the internet is interesting because it's made relationships like that possible. Like, there are some people who are best friends who live on really separate corners of the world. And the only reason they were able to meet each other is because they were in, like, a rage, that's not a game, Siege lobby, or playing WoW, or Fortnite even. I feel that the internet is interesting in the fact that it can both bring people together and push them apart.
Yeah, I think when it comes to, like, forming a relationship, either in real life or over the internet or online, I think it can boil down to vulnerability. Because I think, I mean, the reason why we like each other in this room is because we're vulnerable to each other. We're not putting up this fake personality. I mean, people can see right through that anyways. And so even with, like, music artists, you can feel really connected towards one artist because you can feel like he's being vulnerable with me. Like, he's speaking to me about things that, you know, like, he wouldn't talk to other people about. He's being completely transparent with me right now. I think that's an important aspect because I think even with Twitch, that's one of the better platforms where people can just be themselves because they're being themselves and people tune in for them, for that person, because they are themselves. They're not putting forth this fake, you know, positive or whatever attitude. It's just all just being completely transparent. I think is interesting.
I would say definitely when it comes to the internet and like gauging how personable you're able to be on the internet has to be traversed pretty carefully, because everyone pretty much knows this. Anyone can give out any type of personality over the internet. I would say even people who may be streaming can put on a different act than how they actually act in real life. A good example of this would be, I would like to reference Ninja, the Fortnite streamer. He talked about how there was one point where he didn't like cussing in his streams. He didn't want to have people on who were going to be saying a bunch of bad words, but then people obviously would pull up clips which he was playing a different game and have a different artist. I mean, not artist, but like a different audience. And he would be talking bad to like little kids, saying pretty off the wall stuff. And so it's like, well, which is your personality? Like, what are you trying to gain? What are you trying to show people? And another reference you could use is probably Instagram. A lot of people are able to dictate what people view of them based on their pictures, such as if someone's always posting very earthy pictures and very happy, uplifting stuff, but they could be the most depressed person in real life. You know what I'm saying? The internet gives you a lot of ability to dictate what people see of you.
There's certainly a large amount of leeway there. One thing that I find interesting about the whole Ninja situation is like the money factor, and this is something that affects like a large amount of mass media. But like, I guess we could say that Ninja, back when he was swearing like a sailor, honestly, and bad mouthing little kids, that was genuinely, that's who he was. Like, and because he was streaming for fun, really. He was just doing it because he enjoyed doing it. Now he's like a multi-billionaire and is now signing deals with Mixer and whatnot. He's a celebrity per se, and like, money changes people. I feel like that is ubiquitous, honestly.
Something that he pointed out was that he now understood that his audience was a bunch of little kids, and so, or I wouldn't say a bunch of little kids, but a younger audience, more innocent audience, and so he wanted to portray
himself,
and be a role model to people, and not be acting out of character. Especially when little kids are watching this at the dinner table around their family or something like that. Everyone's been in that position where they're watching a YouTube video and their mom looks over like, "What are you watching?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then all of a sudden an F-bomb goes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, it's a very noble act that Ninja is doing. Sorry for cutting you off, but I would say it's weird to see that him trying not to act out of character is out of character. Yeah. But going back to you.
What was I gonna say? Yeah. So it's crazy. Like, obviously he has a more like censored audience, and he can't really be be himself. But I think it's interesting how before, like, he's this kind of off the wall person, like sailor, as you said, and now he's kind of like this PG gamer that kids love. And I think it's crazy how, I mean, in a sense, it doesn't even seem like he's faking it now. It seems like he became that person. It seems like whenever you're trying to fake and to fulfill a role, how like you fake it until you become it, essentially. And it's just kind of interesting how you can mold your personality based off of a need and a want from an audience. But so it's just like, how long does it take, or how long do you have to, or how hard do you have to believe in something to become it?
Well, it's like my view on this Ninja thing is like, I don't fault him for it. If your audience is someone younger and all you're doing is trying to succeed in that platform and grow, I feel like it makes sense to just like target that audience and like just kind of adapt to who your audience is. So rather, I don't think he's being fake, but he's just like making strategic moves.
Yeah, audience targeting is definitely something that's very prevalent in the world of marketing and entertainment, so to speak. Targeting yourself is very prominent.
Excuse us 1 second. It seems that we have a knock at the recording booth. I'm going to pause this momentarily, and we will be right back. And we're back. Back to you, Cleavon.
Yeah, I was really wrapping up what I was saying. Just explaining how I think changing your personality or molding your presentation is very prominent in marketing and entertainment to appeal to an audience or convey a certain message to a particular subset of people. And yeah, that's all I have to say on that.
Okay, cool.
Even like as an RLA, which means residential life assistant.
Similar to an RA on college campuses.
Yeah. So being an RLA on this hall, I mean, I find myself, I think I incorporate my personality more into the role.
This hall being First Hill.
Yeah, I think I incorporate my role as RLA within my personality pretty well. I think a lot of people, when they're RLA, they think, oh, I'm going to have to be this big dude that everyone looks up to, and I have to be all like perfect and be a perfect role model. I mean, obviously you want to be a role model for your hall, and keeping in mind that you represent your hall even when you're on hall, when you're off hall, no matter where you go. But I think even being an RLA, I experienced that. Like sometimes I do need to kind of shift and cater my personality towards a certain group, especially if it's a group that I don't necessarily hang out with. In some sense, you don't want to change your personality so much with where you're changing who you are, but at the same time, you kind of need to learn how to adapt. Yeah, and another thing with like the RLAs, one question I had for the RLAs last year is just like, how do you be yourself and have this title at the same time? It's just like, it always seems like you always have to keep yourself censored, and it's just like, and no, that job is what you make it. You don't need to confine towards a specific role. But yeah.
I can relate this similar to my leadership position. I'm a student ambassador here on the NCSSM campus, and what we do is we help work in the admissions office to upcoming students who are applying, and what we operate like is basically the face of the school. We serve as active role models. We give tours. We talk to big reps who want to just know what the school's about. And the way I use my personality. Some would say I would have a very outgoing personality. I like to be funny. I like to make jokes, which can often be considered immature in a very formal setting. And the way I do it, the way I kind of gauge the situation is I try to incorporate that into what I'm doing, so I can be authentic, but yet still personify an image and dictate, a mature setting, and still be, I would say, formal in a way.
Okay, cool. Definitely. I feel that you two are definitely alluding to a bigger picture of like what it means to lead, and the complex nature of leadership, because like there's no one way to do it. I mean, a book will probably tell you that there is, but there will also probably be a book that tells you that there isn't. Leadership is defined as much by the leader as well as the people that are being led. And because not everyone responds the same to the same sentence. And in that sense, like, leaders have to be adaptable to the people that they are leading.
I feel like if you're trying to lead something or you're trying to get something started, I think the biggest thing you need to do is start a culture. I think a culture where everyone wants to be a part of, or someone wants to be in, where for example, this little gregarian thing we have going on. I don't know how to explain it, Daquan.
The Gregarians is a startup movement, I want to say, that is personifying a cult. They try to avoid any of the negative implications that cults have, because trust me, there's many. Despite that, it's odd. In essence, it's kind of just dumb fun, maintained by one senior on Hall, who will not be named. and they kind of just sit around and pretend to worship or respect extraterrestrial deity-like figures, which it has problems. There's many objections that one could probably have because it really does sound like a cult. But
Yeah.
it's odd that I think the point that Mike is trying to get at is the fact that it's a lot of people following a set of like ideals.
Yeah, digressing back to that like culture thing. Like, I was watching this documentary about Travis Scott. Like, what is it, Mom? I Can Fly, something like that. And like, what Travis, like, as a performer, like what he does so well is he's able to make the kids feel like they're in the performance or like they're with him, but yet, you know, kind of like have this image of like kind of like an idol. Mm-hmm. So it's like that thin line of like, I know him, but I want to get to know him more, or I want to be in this little like following. Yeah. And
and I would say that it can definitely be dangerous in the terms of like, what will you do to try and impersonate your idols, or like what will you do to become closer to idols? And like, again, this ties back to the fact that like cults are very, very dangerous and generally should be avoided. But it's interesting to see how far people will go to become other people.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think a lot here at NCSM too, you kind of have that issue of like JJ brought up a good point. Like it's kind of human nature to like kind of be a chameleon and kind of like adapt to different people. But at the same time, like it's a thin line between adapting and being fake. You know, some people will put like kind of like a cold shoulder or kind of like pretend they like you, but won't really say anything. You know, and especially at a school where like you see them 24/7, it's kind of hard to do that consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Going on that, the whole adaptability versus being fake thing, I think it is definitely possible and a very, I would say, common thing where people have different personality types, and I would say hanging out with a certain group doesn't necessarily define whether you're like adapting to them, such as you just have a common characteristic or interest. You know, growing up, I could always go hang out with the, you know, stereotypical nerd, because, you know, I was smart, you know, I like to play video games, but then I could also go down the hallway to the gym and hang out with the, you know, the basketball players,
stereotypical jocks,
you know what I'm saying? And that's because in me, I share common interests with both those stereotypical groups, and so I'm able to use that and piggyback off of that
and magnify it.
Yeah, and like, you know, magnify it, blow it up, and have meaningful relationship with different types of people.
Exactly. I think at least the problem with some people, like, I have the same experience, like, you either talk to nerds or like hang out with the jocks. It's like nowadays, I think people always want to label things. You know, they say, oh, why are you hanging out with the nerds, or why are you hanging out with the jocks? Like, people constantly try to label and put you in a group rather than just kind of letting you be unique in like who you are. There's always like just like these labels that try to put you in, like, oh, you hang out with that group, you must be associated with this and this, you know. And it's kind of weird, but I don't know.
What that kind of relates to a previous conversation that I was having with Daquan and Michael, a couple students here on Hall. We were talking about, can you take the type of music somebody listens to and use that to, I don't know, what do we call it? Define their personality?
To define it, like that person as a whole. Is like, does someone's musical taste, is that a proper representation of who they are?
Yeah, and what we basically come up to is, you will find that most people are listening to a certain genre of music to attack a part of it, but not necessarily encompass it as a whole.
Yeah.
And so an example I gave was, I can listen to some slow music about girls if I'm in a very, like, you know, I would say lovable mood, like if I'm thinking about a girl, but without necessarily liking the music itself.
Sharon is a girl on campus.
No, Ed Sheeran.
No, Ed Sheeran.
Oh, Ed Sheeran.
The artist.
Oh, I misheard you. I'm so sorry.
No. And so basically, and then I was also talking about how I listen to a lot of modern day trap, and it's not necessarily because I think I'm a gangster or I'm gonna go out and shoot 50 people. Or I think I'm the hardest dude out. As opposed to like looking for that up pace beat, that kind of then reflects my personality. As in, I'm a very upbeat person. I like to have fun. That doesn't really mean I want to be a gangbanger. And so you can't really define people by that surface line ideals, but you can definitely think of like little things that you can attack within that.
Yeah, I think with that, like couple of things. Going back to what we said about people putting stigmas on something, like everyone wants to put something into a box. I mean, I know that topic's been talked to death, but I think I'm the same way with Cleavon and Mikey. I'm really versatile in who I can talk to, per se the nerds, per se the jocks, and that's kind of something hard to articulate because then you're putting someone in a box, you're putting the nerds in the, so like, especially because I remember I was trying to talk about it on an application. It's just like, how do I say that? So, but I think it's just about being like versatile. But I think since we believe so heavy in that of just being able to hang out with whoever and not putting a label on anyone, that's something that we've seen on Hall. First Hill typically has had the stigma of being like the more lame or the more nerdier Hall that everyone kind of like dogs on. But I mean, ever since we moved on here, like all of us in this room, we embraced it. We were like, I mean, I guess so, but I mean, I'm still 10 toes down for First Hill. And then that whole entire mentality has kind of taken over the whole entire hall. And you can see it. I mean, I don't really care what other people think about our hall, but other people are saying, no, First Hill's glowing up. It's just like, no, we stayed the same. We just happened to encompass this, like, the way of thinking, this mentality.
They just started seeing it.
And they just started seeing it, which I think, I mean, I can respect that, but at the same time, I just still feel it's just like, I mean, I've been this way. I'm sorry it took you this long to see it. But, and then going back to music, for me, it's just whenever I listen to music, like, even back with the Christmas thing, it's more of, like, for an emotion or for, like, a feeling. Like, I would say I listen to, like, trap and rap music really heavily. But, I mean, like I said, I'm obviously not going to go out there and shoot, like, a whole bunch of people and pretend like I'm with it or something like that. It's just I listen to it because, like, it gets me in a lit mood, or, like, and yeah, even with, like, the R&B stuff, I do it because I want to be in a specific mood. And even with, like, some more low-key stuff, like bedroom pop, it's just, like, I mean, it's just something that I like. It doesn't define me.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just like,
yeah. That's why I hate whenever, like, my dad, who's, like, adamantly against rap, and he's, like, a country bumpkin, he loves, like, he's like, why don't you listen to country, but it's all, like, good, this and that. It's just like, I mean, yeah, but, like, so, like, I know it's kind of bad, but, like, I'm not necessarily listening for the content. A lot of musical artists I really enjoy, I do, but for, like, stuff like that, when he hears me listening to, like, trap music, he'll pick apart the lyrics. He's like, what does this mean to you? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's just like, I don't agree with the lyrics, but the emotion
it sounds
I'm
good.
Feeling,
It feels good.
It's completely validated.
Yeah.
You can't really not validate the emotion I feel from a particular, like, song.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how people pull different pieces from the same amounts of movement, and like this goes back to like even classical things. There will be many a times where a composer like Beethoven will specifically try and capture a mood, and you can have an entirely different representation of it. One song that I do find extremely interesting to analyze is Clair de Lune by Debussy. And it's actually not notorious, but famous for being like the first recorded song.
Wow.
I think. It's a beautiful piano piece, and it has themes of moon being over the water. But depending on how you look at it, it can be extremely happy and well, not extremely happy, but happy and nostalgic, or breathtakingly sad. And so I think that was just in agreement to what you were saying.
Yeah. So I kind of bringing this, like, kind of talking to a broader subject of kind of like how the media like talks about, oh, kids listen to rap and days or playing like video games. like they're gonna, it like it enhances them or like makes them want to like do these like school shootings or stuff, which is like completely wrong. I think we hit it right in the nails. Like we play video games or we listen to this type of music just maybe capture a mood or feeling rather than kind of like release or like enhance like our feelings. It's just like
definitely,
especially like growing up, like I'm telling you, like MW2, BO2, like first of all it was fun because like playing with my friends, but it was
Modern
just
Warfare
like
2 and Black Ops 2.
Oh yeah. I think it was just like it's just like it captured the feeling. I had like fun and I had like no like I don't think desire to like let me do this in real life.
Right,
it was just it was a time and mood for everything.
Yeah, definitely.
I just feel like they're just trying to like expand on something that's not even there.
Yeah.
And what I think that comes from is people who don't necessarily align with you find a reason that may not necessarily be valid to try and make some sort of sense out of the situation.
Good point.
I would say for people who talk about, trap music will mostly say this is ignorant, this is not good music, but I would say that also comes from a place of ignorance, really, because like I explained that night, everyone makes music or listens to music because either they're chasing a mood or there's something relatable in that music. And I would say, it's like, the general opinion that it's like everything now is just money, guns, and drugs and all that type of stuff. But like, I often look deeper into it, as in I'm able to see that, okay, this person, or even when you see interviews with people, rappers like Polo G and NBA YoungBoy, the Baby, they say that they don't necessarily like their lifestyle or what their life used to be before fame, but how they're trying to show what life is really like for them. And like I said, it sounds like hell on earth.
Yeah, they have to paint a picture.
I'm saying? But people really try and degrade it, and they're like, oh, you're just ignorant, you're not speaking good, you're not conveying a message. But if you really listen to it, think about what a life would be like where when you step out the house, you got to worry about what color you got on or what block you're standing on at what time, bullets flying over the night, worrying about getting shot through the house. It's like, if you listen to the words, it doesn't sound appealing at all, and I don't think they're making it to be appealing as much as to just give an insight into what their life might be like. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they have to. Like,
which obviously that's not true for everybody. Some rappers do relish in the fact that they're gangbangers or something like that, and I would say that.
And that's because like
to ignorance.
Right, that's the life that they've lived though.
But at the same
you can
time,
hear some lyrics where they're like, "Oh, I remember I had no meals," or "Mom was on crack," or something like that. And now it's like, it's not that way anymore, but that's what my life was like, and there are people who relate to that. And so I'm trying to give you insight into what other people are going through, so you take this and do something with it instead of just kind of pushing it off.
Yeah.
I feel like people like the ignorance people you're talking about, I feel like they're even more ignorant in the fact that they'll just hear a lyric and won't try to dissect it or try to like look at the song as a whole. They hear one cuss word or one like, I fucked 2 bitches last night. You know what I'm saying? Like they don't look at it at a holistic point of view. They just look at it. Oh, he said this. I don't want my son listening to this because it might cause him to go out and maybe try to gangbang or whatever. It's they're ignorant in that.
With 2 females.
Yeah, they're ignorant in the fact that they're not wanting to know more.
Yeah.
I think I'm sorry, I know.
No, go ahead.
But I think with that, I think it's just like an issue of finding the most surface level correlation and running with it. And like, I'm taking stats right now. So there's a difference between a correlation and a relationship. Correlation basically is saying like, these two things have like outcomes that are similar to each other but are not related, or we can't prove that. And relationship is two strictly things that one causes something and there's an effect on another thing. And so there's just a surface level correlation, like going back, like these violent video games are causing people to shoot up schools. That's correlation. Let's stick with that because they both have violence in it, and that's something that kids do at a young age. So let's kind of run with it. And that like extends to the topic of like conspiracy theories. Everyone loves like the conspiracy theory of like the moon landing wasn't real because like maybe one small thing was like, oh, it was a really convenient thing that correlates it, and everyone just loves like, and they just kind of stuck with it. It's just like, well, it makes sense, and they don't even look to seek anything deeper.
And I feel like that might come from like the law of parsimony, which means to use the simplest explanation for everything that you can in biology. But I would say that because of the fact that people try and like find the closest and fastest conclusion for why something happened, is an explanation for a lot of these conspiracy theories. Because like, the one thing that the mind cannot understand is what it doesn't know, which works recursively, but in the sense that because of the fact that the mind can't understand it, it will try its best to. Like when you don't know something, like you are inclined usually to try and find it out. And if you aren't trying to find it out, you're trying to avoid it. And so there's an interesting dynamic here. We have hit the 40-minute mark. I don't know if you guys want to keep going. This is more like a admin thing, but we can if you want, or we can do closing remarks.
Yeah, that's fine. We can pick it up.
Yeah. We can pick
Nate
up
Mike
later.
Complete, episode 2.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today at the podcast. It still doesn't have a name. We need to work on that.
Do you have ideas, or is it just like...
I have some ideas,
Okay.
but I haven't really reached maturity yet. I'm thinking it'll just kind of come to me.
Yeah.
But I've been Daquan, and this is...
Cleveland 223 from 678.
Yeah.
Nathan or Nate Puzzle.
Mickey Mac Mike, you know, on the track, you know what I'm saying?
All right. Thank you for joining us today.
For having
Yeah,
us.
thank you, Daquan.
Thank you for
Appreciate
having
it.
us.
Oh, yeah, but of course, you guys were great. Goodbye.
Oh,
Oh, wait.
clown for that.